Hi boys and girls, this is Misty again, and I'm here to read our second myBook text for the week called The Talking Vegetables. Before we get started, there are a couple of things that you will need in order to read along with me. The first thing that I'm going to ask you to grab and have in front of you is your myBook. And if you want to, you can go ahead and open up to page 54 of your myBook text and get ready to get started reading with me. The other thing I'm going to ask you to have is either a highlighter or a pencil, something to annotate your text with. So that means I'm going to ask you to go back into your text and either underline, circle, or highlight evidence from the text that helps us to answer some of our questions throughout our reading. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds to grab those materials, and then we'll get started. All right, so today we're going to be reading a folk tale called The Talking Vegetables. Folk tales are stories from long ago that have been told over and over again. And some of the characteristics of a folk tale, some things that we're going to be looking for as we read through our story today is we're going to be noticing that there are animals that act and talk like people. And in our story specifically today, not only do animals act and talk like people, but also some vegetables act and talk like people. And so that's a big characteristic of a folk tale. Another characteristic of a folk tale is that those characters oftentimes are faced with a challenge or a problem, and they work towards solving that problem. And at the end of the story, oftentimes there is a resolution to that problem. And so we'll notice that our characters in our story today are going to face some sort of problem. And through that problem and solution or resolution at the end of the story, those characters are going to learn a lesson. And so we know that in folk tales, oftentimes there is a lesson that the character learns. And so today we're going to be looking specifically at the lesson that the spider is learning from those talking vegetables that he encounters. Before we get started reading our story, there are a few power words that I want to go over with you. Remember, these power words are going to be inside of our text today, and as we read those power words together, or we come across those power words in our story today, remember your job is to read them out loud as we get to them in our reading. So the first one is the word pounding. If you are pounding on something, you are hitting it hard many times. So an example of somebody pounding something would be if somebody is pounding a nail into the wall with a hammer, right? If you've ever built something with your grandfather or with your dad or your brother, you might be pounding that nail into the wall or into a piece of wood, right? The word is pounding. Can you read that with me? Ready? Pounding. Excellent. The next word is the word smooth. If something is smooth, it is flat and not bumpy. So the skin on my arm feels soft and smooth. If I run my hand across my arm, I don't feel very many bumps. It's nice and soft. It's nice and smooth. The word is smooth. Can you read it with me? Ready? Smooth. Excellent. The next word is the word delicious. When something is delicious, it tastes very good. So the fruit that I had today tastes so delicious, right? It tasted so delicious. I want you to think about something that you think tastes delicious and share that with the person sitting next to you. Yeah. So I bet if I was sitting with you today, I would hear many of you say that something sweet is delicious, right? So maybe you said ice cream is delicious or cupcakes are delicious, right? All those sweet things are very, very, very delicious. Say the word with me. Ready? Delicious. Excellent. Our last word is the word stretched. Can you read that? Stretched. If something is stretched, it became its full size or got even longer or wider. I stretched my arm up so I could reach the box. Everybody stretch your arm up. Yeah, excellent, right? You might have had a time where you needed to reach something really high and you stretched your arm to reach that thing. Let's go back and let's read all 4 of our power words, because remember, when we get to those words in the text, you're going to have to read them out loud with me. So let's practice. Ready? Pounding, smooth, delicious, stretched. Excellent job. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next thing. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to meet our authors and get to know them a little bit better. What we're going to do is we're going to be listening to an audio that tells us a little bit about the background of our 2 authors, and maybe a little bit of how their background, how their childhood led them to maybe want to write the talking vegetables that we're going to read today.
Juan Lady Pei and Margaret H. LePere both come from families of storytellers. Mr. Pei grew up in Africa in a country called Liberia. He was trained by his grandmother to remember and retell stories of the people that lived there. He has told his stories to thousands of schoolchildren. Miss LePere grew up listening to English and Irish stories told by her father. Mr. Pei and Miss LePere have teamed up to write award-winning picture books of folk tales, including The Talking Vegetables.
Excellent. So you've learned a little bit about our 2 authors and how their childhood of being around storytellers led them to want to grow up and tell stories of their own. And so we're going to read one of those folk tales that they wrote called The Talking Vegetables. And again, as we read today, our Read to Find Out question, the question that we're going to answer at the end of our reading together today is, what lesson does Spider learn from the talking vegetables? Or what lesson do the talking vegetables try to teach Spider? And you're going to respond to that question in your packet for this week. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So if you haven't turned to page 54, go ahead and turn to page 54 with me. Remember, get your finger ready. We're going to listen, and you're going to be following along with your finger. Here we go. Ready? Listen. The Talking Vegetables. Top of page 56. Fingers ready? Ready? Listen. Bam, bam, bam. Who's pounding on my door so early in the morning? Spider shouted. Your neighbors. It's time to clear the land for our village farm. Go away, said Spider. I'm tired. But we need you, they said. If everyone helps, there will be plenty of vegetables for all of us. Spider yawned. I don't need your vegetables. I have plenty of rice. Let's stop. I want you to think. Spider asks on page 56, who's pounding on my door so early in the morning? Who is pounding on his door? I want you to think and tell the person sitting next to you. So I should have heard you say something like, the neighbors are pounding on Spider's door, right? I want you to grab your highlighter or pencil, and I want you with me to find that answer on page 57. So these neighbors respond to Spider's question by saying, your neighbors, right? He says, who's knocking on my door? And they say, your neighbors. So if I were underlining or finding a piece of evidence that supports my answer of the neighbors knocking on his door, I would highlight or I would underline the words, your neighbors. Can you do that for me? Highlight or underline the words, your neighbors. Excellent. All right, let's go ahead and keep reading. Go ahead and turn the page. Get your finger ready on the word everyone. Ready, listen. Everyone in the village walked down the road to a clearing in the forest. Everyone except Spider. They worked all day cutting down bushes, tearing out vines, and digging up roots. They raked, smoothed beds, and built a waterway. The next morning, the villagers came again to Spider's door. Bam, bam, bam. Who's there? Spider called. Your neighbors. Come help us plant the seeds. I said no, and I mean no, shouted Spider. Now go away. I heard lots of things that Spider said, and I also read things that Spider did. I want you to think, and with your highlighter or your pencil, I want you to underline or highlight either an action, something Spider did or did not do, or something Spider said that may help us to understand the type of character Spider is. So go to page 58 or page 59, find a sentence, something that he says or does that might tell us the type of character he is. Okay, so I see two things. The first thing I see is on page 58. On page 58, I read that everyone in the village walked down to the road to clear the forest, right? And it says everybody went except for Spider. So that's one thing that I might underline that tells me a little bit about Spider, right? This sentence right here tells me that he's not a very, I would say maybe a team player, right? He's not very friendly. He doesn't help his neighbors the way that they asked for his help, right? You could also on page 59 highlight or underline the sentence where Spider talks and says, "I said no, and I meant no," shouted Spider. "Now go away." What this tells us is that Spider is not very friendly, right? First, he doesn't go with his neighbors who ask for help. And secondly, he shouts at them when they try to ask for more help, right? He says, "Go away," and he shouts at them. Those two things tell me that Spider is not a very friendly, not a very positive character in our story. Let's keep reading to see if that stays the same or if that changes. Fingers ready? Ready? Listen. The villagers carried seeds to the farm and planted them in straight rows. They planted cassava, tomato, squash, pumpkin, cabbage, cucumber, pepper, and many different kinds of beans and greens. Fingers ready? Ready, read. A month later, the villagers knocked on Spider's door again. Bam, bam, bam. Spider opened his door and yelled, "What do you want now?" "It's time to weed the farm," they answered. "I didn't help before, and I'm not helping now," Spider screamed. He slammed the door and went back to bed. Ooh, I want you to show the person sitting next to you thumbs up or thumbs down. Has Spider's attitude changed from what we said before? It hasn't, has it? Spider is still not willing to help his neighbors, even though they come to him and ask him for help again. Let's keep reading to see, what do we know about the neighbors? What kind of characters are they? Are they the same type of character as Spider or different? Fingers ready? Ready, listen. All day the villagers pulled weeds. Their knees hurt, their backs ached, and their arms were sore. In time, the vegetables began to ripen. The villagers picked what they wanted. Stop right here. I want you to think, are the villagers the same or different as Spider? Would you describe them being unkind and unhelpful and not very friendly, maybe rude? You're probably shaking your head and saying no, right? These characters are not rude. They are not unfriendly, right? They are not unkind. I want you to think, what do these characters do to tell us that they are unlike Spider? Yeah, they work together, right? They even said they work really hard, right? We could describe them as being hardworking characters. They work together. They work really, really hard. They work so hard that their knees started to hurt. Their backs were aching, right? Their bodies and their arms were really sore. And because they put in all that hard work, they were able to eat and pick those vegetables that they worked together to grow, right? Excellent. Okay, let's keep reading. Let's move myself. Fingers ready? Ready? Listen. One day, Spider said to himself, I'm getting tired of rice, plain rice, day after day after day. I live here. I'm part of this village too. I'm going to pick myself some vegetables to go with my rice. When Spider got to the farm, he couldn't believe his eyes. Huge cucumbers lay on the ground. Giant pumpkins rested under green leaves. Juicy tomatoes hung from the vines. So what did Spider decide to do? I want you to take your pencil, your highlighter, and on page 66, I want you to highlight or underline, what did he decide to do? What did Spider decide to do one day? So you should have said or underlined this sentence where he tells us that he's going to pick himself some vegetables to go with his rice, right? So I could underline or I could highlight where he tells us that he's going to go to the farm and he's going to pick himself some vegetables, right? What does he notice when he gets to that farm? What does he see? Go ahead and share with the person sitting next to you. What does he see once he gets there? Yeah, he sees this amazing farm, right? He says that he couldn't believe his eyes. He sees huge cucumbers laying on the ground, giant pumpkins resting under these beautiful, gorgeous green leaves, right? These really juicy tomatoes hung from vines. If I had to make an inference about how Spider was feeling when he saw all of these wonderful vegetables, I would probably say that he was feeling pretty good, right? He was feeling like had hit the jackpot. Like he was so excited to be able to pick these really delicious vegetables to put with his rice. Let's see how the vegetables respond when they see Spider coming into their farm. Fingers ready? Ready, read. Wow, said Spider. Those tomatoes look delicious. I'll take one or maybe two. Spider reached out to pick a tomato from the nearest plant. The tomato shook itself and said, What are you doing? Spider said, A talking tomato? The tomato said, Why do you think you can pick me when you didn't come to clear the land or plant my seeds or pull the weeds? Get out of here. Well, let's stop right here. So Spider went to go pick these vegetables, right? How did Tomato respond when Spider tried to pick him off of the vine? I want you to underline the sentence or sentences that he said. What did he say? What did Tomato say to Spider when he tried to pick him off the vine? Go ahead and underline or highlight it on page 69. Awesome. So I could probably see you, or I should see you, or you should have underlined the sentence that says, Why do you think you can pick me when you didn't come to clear the land or plant my seeds or pull the weeds? Get out of here, right? That's exactly what he says, what Tomato says to Spider. You need to think about why he might have said that. Why doesn't he want him to pick him? Why doesn't Tomato want Spider to pick him? Yeah, because he didn't help his neighbors, right? He didn't help his neighbors clear the land or plant the seeds. Let's keep reading. We're going to be reading about how the other vegetables respond to Spider as Spider continues to try to pick them for himself. Fingers ready? Ready? Listen. Spider backed away. He looked around and said, There are so many fat cucumbers on that vine. I'll just take one, or maybe two. But as he walked toward the cucumber vine, it started moving away from him. Spider was surprised. He had never seen a moving vine before. It twisted all over the ground. You can't pick us, he said a cucumber. You didn't clear the land. You didn't plant our seeds. You didn't pull the weeds. Fingers ready? Ready? Listen. Spider ran to the other side of the farm. Ahead, he saw a perfect pumpkin, big enough, but not too big. "I'll just grab that pumpkin on my way out," he said, but he couldn't lift it. The pumpkin stuck to the ground. He tugged and pulled, but the pumpkin wouldn't move. "You can't take me," the pumpkin said. "You didn't help make the farm. Go away." Ooh, it sounds like the vegetables, the pumpkin, and the cucumber responded the same exact way as the tomato, right? What did they all tell Spider as Spider was trying to pick them from the farm? Yeah, you should have said something like, they all said, "You didn't help, so you can't pick me," and told him to go away, right? I want you to think about how do you think Spider is feeling right now, right? Do you still feel like he's feeling unkind and kind of rude? Or do you think his feeling or his attitude may be changing once these vegetables are saying, "You didn't help, you can't pick me"? Keep reading and find out. Fingers ready? Ready, listen. Spider tried to find his way out of the farm, but the vegetables reached up to grab him. Leaves covered his eyes, stems stretched out to trip him. Spider finally got free. He ran all the way back to the village. When he got home, he was tired and hungry. He put on a pot of water over the fire and boiled some rice. So if you see, what did the vegetables do at the very end of his time at the farm? Underline the sentence that tells you, what did the vegetables do? Their final thing that they did to Spider. Right, yep. It says that the vegetables grabbed him, right? The vegetables grabbed him. The leaves covered his eyes and the stems stretched out to trip him. They're trying to capture Spider so he wouldn't pick them, right? All right, let's see. That night, he ate rice for dinner. Plain rice. The end. I hope you enjoyed listening to our story as much as I enjoyed reading it aloud to you. Now, your job is to be thinking back to Spider and the talking vegetables, thinking back to the problem and the resolution of our story, and be ready to respond on your Wednesday response sheet. What lesson did the talking vegetables teach Spider? You're going to choose out of 2 lessons. You're going to circle which one you think best describes the lesson that Spider learned. And then you're going to go back into the text and you're going to find some examples that made you believe that that was the lesson that Spider learned. All right. Excellent job. We'll see you soon. Bye.